Welcome back once again. This is Sunday edition here on KTN News. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta did allay fears over the privacy of data in the digital registration for huduma number launched Tuesday. The president said data held by the government is safe, adding that the National Police Service Management System has exposed ghost workers who cost 148 million shillings every month. Rita Tinina monitored the launch of the huduma number across the country for us.
It was one of those rare occasions that the government and members of the opposition speak in one voice. In Masii, Machakos County, President Uhuru Kenyatta launched the National Integrated Identity Management System NIMS registration exercise.
Same gadget. And then
In Kajiado County, ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi led 3 cabinet secretaries in the launch of the registration exercise. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka and Ford Kenya leader Moses Wetangula played the same role in Murang'a County, as NASA leader Raila Odinga led the exercise in Likoni, Mombasa. With Kenyans accustomed to carrying several documents from IDs, driver's licenses, passports, NSSF to NHIF cards, the huduma number seeks to compress all the information into a single source.
That you need to get the services you need wherever you go within government services.
Sio kupata namba tu, ni kusema ya kwamba Kenya iko tayari kuwa nchi ya maendeleo.
Sio lazima ati urudi kwako nyumbani. Wherever you are in the Republic of Kenya, that is your home. You register yourself.
But it has been met with some resistance. It was okayed by the court on the eve of the launch, and leaders sought to allay fears over the privacy of data.
Wengine wameenda sijui ati ukienda kujiandikisha utatoa damu, sijui uwekwe, sijui DNA testing. Ati mzee anaambiwa ukienda kujiandikisha, sasa kama wewe uko na mpango ya kando, mtoto atajua baba yake ni nani. Sasa nakwambia upuzi ambao uko Kenya ni mwingi sana. Ati utafanywa DNA. Na sasa DNA ni yako na watu yako nyumbani. Hiyo serikali haina haja na mambo hiyo.
Wengine wamekimbia mahakamani. Ati wanapinga. Mimi nauliza wanapinga nini? Dada mahakama nasema ati hiyo ni lazima, sijui nini. Ikiwa kama kungekuwa kitu ambacho inatakana hiyo ni lazima ni hii.
Kenyans will be required to provide, among other things, name, date of birth, place of birth, gender, postal address, phone number, marital status to education level, and where applicable, KRA PIN, NSSF, and HIF numbers, fingerprints, and a digital photo.
NASA huduma namba. NASA nini?
Sasa naanza kupinga huduma namba. Na hao wenyewe wasema atupingi. Sasa hao wapinzani watakuwa na shida kubwa sana.
Nikisikia makasisi wengine wakisema ati hii ni namba ya shetani. Jameni. Shetani na kujitambulisha inaungania wapi?
The exercise will be undertaken by registration officers at assistant chiefs' offices, mobile registration centers, and institutions such as prisons and hospitals. And President Uhuru Kenyatta says it will serve to get rid of ghost workers if the National Police Service Information Management System listing is anything to go by.
Tulipata 1,447 people ambao walikuwa wanalipwa mshahara lakini hawako.
The 45-day exercise, which will be conducted by 50,000 registration officers using 31,500 biometric kits, will cost the government 6 billion shillings, just over 4 months to the 2019 population and housing census, which will cost the government 18 billion shillings. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
Thank you, Rita. Dismas, a lot has been said about huduma number, the NIMS, National Integrated Identity Management System. What do you make of it?
Well, for me, I think it's...
Way to go?
Yeah, for me, I think it's an important venture. But maybe the issue would be priorities. Because right now, there are people in Turkana and Baringo who are dying. And when they get these news that there's something called huduma number and they're dying, running on empty stomachs, some are even being given beer instead of real food. So those people begin to worry. But in my view, the principle is a very solid one. because it addresses our national security interest. We are told that previously people have been running the department responsible for immigration and registration of persons. They used to dish out passports every day and IDs. You get somebody who refers to himself as a Kenyan, but they don't speak any Kenyan language. They don't speak Swahili, they don't speak English. If they come from my village, they don't speak KKUC, but yet they claim to be Kenyans. So this huduma number is a strategy to weed out all that mischief. And in my view, people shouldn't be worried. However, the government should address the concerns, especially the ones raised by a few mischievous Christians claiming that it's the Satan's mark, and also the issues around privacy. So maybe we need to have very solid data protection regulations. And at some stage you begin to wonder why Kenyans are nervous. I mean, majority of Kenyans are on WhatsApp, and before you even register to join WhatsApp, they have to confirm that in fact it's your number. So why should Kenyans be worried of going to the local chief and engage in any registration? For me, I think it's a normal venture, but during the registration, what was curious is that the deputy president, who was supposed to be in Kakamega, was missing in action. A number of Kenyans are saying they're not going to register till they see the deputy president do the same. So I'm hoping that maybe in the course of next week, he will get time to go and do the registration.
We'll get into the details of the politics of that. But Mark, this has been surrounded by a lot of questions. The leaders, including the president, going to great lengths to allay those fears. Has this worked elsewhere in the world, and are we there yet?
Well, we are obviously there because, number one, the technology is available and Kenya is in need of these services. Has it worked elsewhere in the world? It has worked in Kenya. That's why we have ID cards. It's worked in the United States, your social security number. We've got all these institutions that try to manage their populations. Now, let's be clear. And I want to address those people who are viewing that the deputy president not going there is now the official Christian stand, which is a bit of madness. Let me explain why. As we sit here, the government took your fingerprints, it took a picture of your face and gave you an ID number. Then you and your very brilliant self went to Facebook, you took your photo, you put who's your relative, who's your wife, who's your cousin, how many vifarangas you have, and you put it on Facebook. So now my question is, why is it then that when the name changes from ID number to huduma number, you're now worried? And how come you think that the devil sat for 10,000 years since Adam was here till now, and his brilliant plan is to give you a huduma number? That is what the devil has been planning all this time. This is what we call lazy theology. This is where cults come from. So please, Christians, do yourself a favor and stop looking like a religious nut and just go and register.
If being a one-stop shop for everything is what is disconcerting for these people that you're talking about.
But that's what you already have. You remember we had the same arguments with Christians using PIN number in the early 90s. That was the same fight. Let's stop thinking that the devil has run out of ideas and numbers is how he's going to get you to worship him forever. That is foolishness. And once you move out past that point, then let's have the serious conversation about data protections and data handling in this country. That's the only valid question in this entire thing. That can we validly say that our data will be safe and our data will be protected? Now, for as long as those have not been breached, and for as long as we are working towards a solution, let me invite Kenyans to remember that when you were born, the government took your name and put it in a system by the way of your birth certificate. When you did your KCSE, they took your details again. When you registered for university, they took your details again. When you go to hospital, they take your details again. What exactly is the problem of just giving your details in one central format so you do not have 6 different numbers to transact with one country?
All right. Hesbon, what do you think of this fear-mongering as Dismas and Mark are calling it?
I've had the opportunity of listening to Dr. Karanja Kibicho explain the whole idea of the huduma number. And I think the key thing about the huduma number is that it will provide a single source of truth for all Kenyans, irrespective of where you are and what you do. Now, the fear that Kenyans have about having their truths consolidated is what should be addressed. And the people who are afraid of having that information put in one source should explain to us why they want all the information scattered. Why do they want to make things difficult? Because for me, the government is not looking for any new information. The government is simply consolidating all this information and put it in a single source. And to bring in all these fear appeals, oh, sijui 666, oh, you are mpango wa kando, I don't think that is important at this moment. We should ask ourselves, if you want a government that is going to provide service, we need to make it easy for that government to be accountable about almost everything that we give the government. My only prayer is that when this data is consolidated into one single database and a unique number generated for all Kenyans, because eventually all Kenyans will have to get to huduma number, is that
that is not what the court said, though.
Yeah, that is not what the court said, but eventually all Kenyans will realize that it is for their own good.
All right.
Because the court says that you cannot force Kenyans. But then, because if you want government services, where are you going to go if huduma number is going to make it easy for you to get those services? But I think most importantly is the security of this data. Who is going to use this data? And then secondly, is it now possible for us to have this single source of data, to even transfer it to our electoral process? Because again, ultimately, the good of this country will be anchored on electoral justice, on the common mwananchi having the voice to decide who is going to be the governor of their resources. So that conversation should stretch to how this is going to sanitize our electoral process.
I'm being the devil's advocate here. Many people asking, why do you need all this information in a single source?
One, Ben, when you're looking for services from the government, or you're processing anything.
If I'm looking for NSSF, yes. I have my NSSF number. If I'm looking for, why do I need it all in the same
If you're
place?
looking for NSSF, for instance, what happens is your employer is contributing or you're contributing. So there is a way in which the amount of money that you've contributed originates from somewhere. So if you have a single source that can interrogate, this is your employer, this is your PIN number, then it is easy to trace. Has he remitted? Because what we are experiencing today is organizations are going through tough times. And you have employers who are not remitting, NHIF, NSSF. So if there is any interrogation, I think from a single source where all this information is consolidated, it is very easy for you to get that services. Ben, that is how I'm looking at it.
Ben, to answer your question, it's a very simple crime detection way. If you cross-reference data, you're more likely to find errors. So basically, it is unlikely that a criminal has registered himself exactly the same in his ID number, NSSF, NHIF, and things like that. So if you're trying to catch out vice, catch out people who have two government jobs that they've been hiding, people who have secret dealings with the government, then cross-referencing is the easiest way to do it. And that's why it's done the world over. So the logic behind having one single source of data is important. Also, it becomes equally important when you're applying for extra services. So for example, just the basic idea of applying for passport. Why is the process of applying for a passport the same process you went through when you were 18 to get your ID? You must bring your father's birth certificate, his death certificate, all of this nonsense that you must bring. If your mother was from Maralal and she lost her ID 6 years ago, now you can't get a passport until she renews hers. So those are some of the things that we need to consolidate so that government processes work better.
All right, Kipchumba, the system, the registration process will go on for the next 45 days. This came just hours after the High Court okayed it under some conditions, including no DNA involved. Uhuru Kenyatta did, confirm and allay that fear. And then you can't force Kenyans to give their information they don't want to give. Where does that leave the uptake of these names if it's not mandatory? And you can't
then the danger of NIMS in itself is the legal framework. That's why the court was trying to put the safeguards. NIMS is founded on no legal framework. That is where we need to begin from. Bearing in mind that as we speak, there is the data protection bill which is pending in Senate. And that bill, among other things, is supposed to tell us how the data is supposed to be collected, processed, and even disseminated, and even stored. So one danger is that when there is no legal framework within which we are operating something, it becomes very slippery. And why are we even collecting the data? The other question that I ask myself, why the hurry to launch this huduma number and everything? Whereas I support it because it stands for a very good thing going forward as a nation. We must have a place where if you go, it were a one-stop shop for all our documents and our details. But the question is, why the hurry? 4 months from now, there is a constitutionally sanctioned national census which will take place. And each household, how many chicken you have, will be captured by government. Why don't we use that as a way of doing this, to do what, to cost cut on this thing? Why must it be done at 6 billion? Because the question is, why are we doing it? The question is, at what cost? The other thing is this, that we must ask ourselves. By bringing this information in one thing, it also tells us that there is a lot of laziness within government, whereby 19.6 million Kenyans are in the IBC system. Around 6 million Kenyans are in the KRA system. Another around 3 or 4 million are in the next system, and several ones. Why don't we start by harmonizing that information? And it is actually more detailed. The information that NEC is holding about Ben Kitili is more detailed than any other information. The information that KRA is holding about you is as recent as where you live. KRA even might know where your GPRS positioning is. So why don't we do that? The other thing that we must ask ourselves is this: on what platform will this information be held? And then there is this loose talk about MasterCard. The people who are proposing this thing must tell Kenyans, as you take this is the role of MasterCard. There is also the fear that it is being used for marketing purposes. You must come out and allay that fear. When you have scholars like David Ndii cast aspersion about a system, people start questioning. That's why we are saying, get the legal framework, do everything in accordance to the law, and then it will be easier. But the idea is noble, that we will have people in one system. The other thing about the court is trying to protect. There is a regime that is in place for how I can get your DNA. Right. I cannot hold you today and get your DNA. And that regime has not been amended. There is a whole regime in terms of why we have a national identification number. Okay. Huduma number has not been put into the law, so we cannot replace a national ID with a huduma number. The other thing is this, as I conclude, the services Kenyans get do not get that services as an offer from government. They get it as a right. Because you are born and you are Kenyan, the government cannot do anything. Article 24 talks about these are rights you are born with. They are inalienable. And finally, maybe just to give a few lessons to Dismas, a Kenyan do not need to speak any language. There are constitutionally ordained means of how a person becomes a Kenyan, and the language you speak is not one of it.
Mark, where does this all leave the whole thing? The fact that it's not based on any legal framework, and therefore Kenyans will not feel obligated. In fact, they are jittery about it.
Well, the courts pronounced themselves and they say that the huduma number is not compulsory. And that's the status quo until the courts rule otherwise. Now, the issue about accessing government services, I think that is also not very clever, because you cannot deny a Kenyan their rights because of lack of a document. If you lost your ID today and you can't remember your PIN number because you were hit on the head or you're suffering some form of condition, it does not mean that a Kenyan hospital cannot treat you. It does not mean that you cannot access basic services in this country, and that must be understood. But the language of saying that this is compulsory is also what is erroneous. It is a process that you must, and this is a mistake that the government keeps making. You must educate a people before you demand results from a people. The reason why they're suffering a lot of backlash is there was not enough education to the masses concerning what the huduma number is exactly supposed to do. For example, no one quite knows that if I get a huduma number tomorrow and I go to access NHIF services and I still have my NHIF card at my local dispensary, what should I give them? What should I give them? You understand? And such a basic question, it may seem rudimentary in its approach, but it's very critical. And that's why, for me, the biggest issue here is Kipchumba raises very many valid points, but the most basic and most important issue also is just addressing the issue that people are huduma number illiterate in a very large scale. And if you cannot do that, then what will happen is people will keep throwing mud and questions at it because of, for example, the MasterCard issue. It is because there is a huduma card that had a MasterCard logo that was circulating on social media. Now, if you ask me how the proper huduma card looks like, I don't know. Right. And those are the issues that you need to address, and it's a matter of education.
This was
Ben, you know, when you're implementing this kind of program, outside just working on the directives that you are going to issue as the responsible minister or as the president, there must be a public awareness program. You must do the frequently asked questions. Educate Kenyans on why this number is. And I suspect the people that Mark Bichachi is referring to are claiming these are 6-6 is because of illiteracy. But now the germane issue here is the president indicated that using a similar system, they discovered we got 5,000 fake policemen. One would have expected that the architects of those ghost workers would be in court. That's, for me, I expected that they would be arrested immediately. But now the president says they've discovered 5,000 ghost workers, 148 million shillings per month, and nothing has happened. It's just gone up in the air. If you take this thing to the counties, there's a very high chance that every county has got about 1,000 ghost workers. So this is something that we must encourage. And maybe the National Assembly or the Senate, they need to move very fast, come up with that Data Protection Act. Right. But more important is for President Kenyatta to ensure that these 5,000 ghost workers, the people who are signing for their salaries for that money, they're arrested, so that we actually know that this thing works.
All right, we have 2 minutes. I want us to talk about something that happened concerning the huduma number thing, and that is, it was the president launched it in Masii, Raila Odinga helped in Mombasa, Musalia Mudavadi was somewhere, Kalonzo Musyoka was in Murang'a with Moses Wetangula. And the deputy president was nowhere to be seen. He was in another state function. A lot of politics being read into that. 10 seconds only. What do you think?
I think the first thing is to tell Kenyans, before I answer the deputy president question, that Otimofo, a French company, has 19.6 million data about Kenyans. Okay. Have we slept angry about that? No. Have we stopped moving around? No. Have we stopped having pango candles? No. So I think let us discuss huduma number with some level of objectivity. Okay. Let us not reduce it into those 6-6 nonsense. Now the issue of deputy president missing there. I think this government works in the normal corporate governance way of collegiality. And the fact that the deputy president was in another government meeting, you do not expect him to be there, unless this is a political party thing where presence matters. Because you need to, these are government interventions which in themselves, they run whether you are there or not. And that is why Amina Mohammed was mandated to represent the deputy president in Kakamega. But what I fear now...
That came as a last-minute communication. There was nothing urgent about the deputy president meeting with the Cuban vice president for...
But the Cuban vice president does not reside in Kenya, Ben. He came for a day, she came for a day, and she was going back.
He already met the president the previous day.
But we don't know the itinerary, because to sit here and postulate. The other thing is this, just to answer you, another thing is this. The court ruled and said that this thing is not compulsory. So maybe why are we trying to force it on the deputy president?
Let me finish with the court thing. If the court rules laws that are made in parliament. If the executive wants to do something, they can go to parliament, enact laws, it becomes an act of parliament, and the court will now force people to do what parliament has done. So I think that one the executive can deal with. But I think we are reading too much in what the deputy president was doing or was not doing. Okay. And I think it's basically news is when a man bites a dog. That's it. He was doing what he was meant to do, but you want to look at what he was not meant to do.
Mark, it looks like the DP was avoiding this huduma number thing. What do you think?
The truth of the matter is perception informs reality. Now, based on my Facebook wall, when I talk about 666 not being part of the huduma number, the number of people who are waiting for the deputy president to get one so that they can get one, then it answers that story. You see, at the end of the day, when you have a position such as deputy president, you cannot take away the responsibility that comes from your action and inaction. And that's just a matter of fact. So for as long as the deputy president is not taking a huduma number and does not tweet a photo or do a video of him taking a huduma number, he will be perceived as being against the huduma number. And unfortunately for him, he will be part of the anti-666 crusade.
This month? Well, Ben, the deputy president has got capacity to do more than 3 meetings in a day. Last Sunday, he had 3 rallies. So the fact that he was meeting with the Cuban vice president does not wash. I mean, he could have met her for breakfast early in the morning. And then, he's from Nairobi to Kakamega, he doesn't walk, he doesn't drive. He uses a chopper, which is 30 minutes away. And the fact that his name was in the program confirms that he's giving this thing a white bath. No other explanation can suffice that it's not a political party. Presence is key in political functions. Presence is very key.
Enough said.
Political function. This was a state function.
Okay. If you say so. Kipchumba.
It was not a Jubilee function, Ben. Did you see Jubilee color?
But what was the name in the program? What was the name in the program?
But it was there before this thing was confirmed.
Even on the day of the State of the Nation address, the Deputy President was supposed to launch something which he had to launch a day before. For the simple reason that there are things that take precedence.
Yes.
And always move things around.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he moved and hosted the Cuban Vice President.
And to be honest, the Cuban Vice President came to discuss exactly how many Kenyans are in Cuba. Okay, like what, 100, 200? And then now, huduma number is how many Kenyans? 50 million. So by measurement, let's see which one is more important.
Who came up with huduma number, if you ask me, before the Deputy President to register or not? They did not see it fit to ask Kenyans, how do you want it done? Why are they asking the Deputy President?
Mark is putting many goalposts and shooting and scoring.
Good questions. Let's take a commercial break here on Sunday edition. When we come back, we shall be letting you have your say, have the final say. Give us, call us with your questions and comments on what we are discussing. That is your call. Don't go too far.
This is KTN News.
This is boxing, we can fight it more than 20 times.
The fight was not easy, but I did my best.
Get paid instantly. Play now. Usibahatishe. Cheza na SportPesa.
Cheza na SportPesa.
Intra-Jubilee wars we are seeing. Are you saying these are manufactured wars?
As soon as the ICC ended, this fallout has been coming a long time.
I spent 4 hours with Uhuru, me and him alone for 4 hours. And I was convinced that he means what he says on the issue of corruption.
We cannot be blamed because of weaknesses of people. Once they get into government, then what they focus more is to use the opportunity to empower themselves.
There are people who are saying that the referendum question is a question of accommodating your politics.
This is not about the 2022, as you've said. It is about changing Kenya.
We need to be a little bit more sophisticated to know that ethnic groups are as old as the hills. They are not going anywhere. And politics is here to stay.
Want to get in the driving seat of a lifetime? Be on the lookout for the awesomeness coming your way in the Standard newspaper this Thursday.
As much as he assured Kenyans that the economy is on an upward trend, to me it is not. Because you see, when there is over-borrowing on domestic market, the rates go up, prices on essential commodities go up. You have seen prices on petrol products going up. This means an ordinary Kenyan cannot be able to meet his basic requirements.
Kenya's biggest business reality show is back. If you have a venture that needs investment, then apply now. Over the last 3 years, Kenyans from all walks of life have received financing and support for their businesses.
I want to offer you the 3.5 million.
This year, it could be you. Applications for KCB Lions Den Season 4 are now open. To apply, visit kcb2jiajiri.com. KCB Lions Den.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back once more if you're just joining us. This is Sunday edition here on KTN News. Let's now bring you to your call where you can give us a call with your views, comments and questions. Let me begin with Albert Nyadhi calling us from the county of Taita Taveta. Albert, how are you, sir? What is your take on what we are discussing?
I'm fine, Kitili, and I'm calling you from Taita Taveta County, Ganganyika area.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yes, I've been hearing the government officials saying that once I'm registered in this huduma number, then I don't need to be moving around with all my all other documents, all other certificates. But what I'm wondering is I've not been seeing those documents being captured in any way. That is when one is registering for the huduma number. We don't see them capturing the NHIS, the ID, and all other documents. So how I need to be explained that more, to be informed more on how is that operational. I mean, they are saying that we will not be moving around with all other documents, but they are not loading them in their registration process. So how does it work?
You do not have enough information. And how does that affect your decision on this huduma number thing?
I don't know if you have captured my question. My question is that since they are saying that I will not be, when I'm registered, I won't be moving around with all these other documents. So how will the huduma number help me when I go to a certain office and I'm asked for this and this certificate? How will the huduma number help me if I've not carried that certificate? How will we assess it in that certain office if I've not carried the other ID card, for example, or the birth certificate or the NHS card, etc.
All right, thank you, Albert, for your question. Very important question. Will help a lot of Kenyans understand this better. The gentleman will be responding to that in a bit. We also have Joshua Mutinda calling us from the county of Murang'a. Joshua, how are you, sir?
I'm fine. Good afternoon, Ben.
Yes, how are you? Tell us what do you think about what's happening in this country?
Well, my first point is on the State of the Nation address. I listened to the president talk about fighting corruption through institutions. But as a very keen Kenyan, I would wish to point out and remind my president that the president is an institution. And time without numbers, there have been admissions, and actually from his own office, that the presidency is riddled with corruption. Yet, he as the person mandated and the person in charge of the executive has done nothing to fight graft. So I wonder, and I ask myself, which are these other institutions that the president expects to fight corruption if he's not leading by example? Number two is on the ODM laws. I think the argument that ODM is losing its ground is neither here nor there. Number one, the by-elections were premised on the fact that they were a result of a flawed election. So it is almost clear to say that the people who actually won these elections may have been the original winners in the general election, number one. Number two, some arguments in our political spheres are premised on the fact that we assume that Kenyans are naive and foolish, that when we have a by-election, it is about Raila and Ruto, that Kenyans cannot think and look at what they want to get in a leader. They cannot choose a good leader from the noises of the political hubris. So I think what the people of Embakasi did, it's obvious to any Kenyan that even from demographics, Embakasi is predominantly Kamba. And again, if you look at, I heard what Mark said, Ochieng is a very intelligent leader. He's charismatic. He's good. He has performed. So I would have expected anything less. And finally, on the Huduma number, Ben, there is too much hype about the Huduma number. These people should register, and I support it, and I'm for it. But can we see reciprocal results from these registrations? You remember we had the biometric voter registration. What did we get? We had a rigged election. We've had other things that come. We had the one for procurement. I don't know. I can't remember what it's called. We were told that now with this procurement management system, our monies are safe. We have seen money looting the country, corruption skyrocketing. So with the Huduma number, the hype that the government is having in terms of driving this registration, we as Kenyans want to see results. We want to see value for money. Otherwise, I will urge and tell my Kenyans that there will come a time when we realize we are on our own. And I tell people that citizens who keep on paying taxes to a corrupt government are not patriots but are slaves. Give my regards, Salimia Mas Bichachi na Dismas Mokua. Thank you very much.
Salimia, I have a question for you before you go, Joshua.
Yes, sir. Yes.
What the president did say that in response to the questions about the war on corruption, he said that anybody who has a case in court will have to go. Is that threshold enough for you, or the mere mention in any graft scandal should be enough to let his cabinet secretaries go?
I'll answer that question very briefly now. If Ben, if you steal my TV and I left in my house and I come back and my TV is not there, but I cannot prove in a court of law. Remember, the court of law, justice does not rely on truth. It relies on evidence induced. If I cannot prove that you stole my TV, it does not preclude the fact that my TV was stolen and someone must take responsibility. It is really hogwash when we see a county like Samburu, whereby 2 billion has been misappropriated. Do we now expect that governor to continue managing those funds as we wait for him to be arraigned in court? I mean, let us be honest with Kenyans. If we are genuine in the war on corruption, let's fight it. If we are not, let's declare Kenya a corrupt nation and tujipange tuendelee na maisha.
Thank you, Joshua. Joshua Mutinda, always very eloquent there, calling us from the county of Murang'a. We also have Enoch Onkoba calling us from the county of Nakuru. Enoch, how are you, sir?
Fine, Ben, how are you?
Good, good. What do you think about the State of the Nation address by the president on Thursday?
The president's address was, let me say, it didn't meet the expectations of many of us. And as a young person, I'll start by saying that I expected the president to talk much about young people, because this is the generation that will lead this country moving forward. We have a country where the youth constitute 73% of the large population of the country. And the president talked about issues that do not really seem to affect the youth or to give the youth that hope that there are better days ahead of them. He talked about corruption and said that we cannot expect him to have some vigilante sort of corruption fight. Somehow, when you start seeing a president talk like that, it tells that he's a defeated president and that he doesn't have much to do about the fight against corruption. So I would not want to talk much about it, because as a young person, I felt cheated, because Jubilee government came into power on the premise of being a youthful government and being a government that was to work for the young people. So the more I talk about it, it hurts me. Now, on the issues by elections in Ugenya and Embakasi North.
Yes.
Time has come for the politicians in this country to know that people have brains of their own to elect the people they want. David Ochieng was fought, and you remember even Orengo going there and saying that we'll go impeach the deputy president because he's the one finding David Ucheng, in a way tainting him as a corrupt leader also. This should serve as a lesson to them, that it doesn't matter how much mud you throw at someone. If the people have made their mind on electing a leader they know will work for them, it will, and they will vote for that person no matter what image, dark image you paint to the candidate. On the issue of the huduma number, there are very critical issues that then the government has not addressed. Number one, this data we are giving is the same data we will give during the census, because we are told that the census will be done biometrically this year. Why do we have to spend 6 billion to register on the huduma number, and then come spend another almost 15 or 20 billion during the census in August? Why didn't they run simultaneously? Because they seem to be achieving the same thing. Because when you hear the president talk about we want to know how many people we are cooking for or we are planning for, it's the same thing the census wants to achieve. Why do them separately? Is there something you're not seeing behind this thing? Is it a corruption scandal in waiting? You know, it calls for us to also be cautious, but to be vigilant. Because some issues may not be proper the way they are.
Thank you, Enoch. Very pertinent questions there you are raising. Enoch Onkoba calling us from Nakuru. And finally, we have one caller, Charles Nyakundi, calling us from Naivasha in the same county of Nakuru. Charles, what question or comment do you have for us?
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. If you can create your panelists, I will be so much happy.
Yes.
If you can allow me, I can comment in Kiswahili.
Yes. Go ahead. Feel free.
This kind of Kenyans wanatindanga. We try to do what to change the forest. Ideally, monkeys are the same. Limetusumbua. Kwa hivyo mimi ningependa kuchangia ya kwamba let us not struggling about huduma number or what. This is a kind of as Mark indicated earlier, this is kind of not haitatupeleka mahali. Because all Kenyans, we are all equal. Not Raila or Ruto, Alepiga, Tanuma, or Val. Let us accept it and let us accept it to agree to change the monkeys other than changing the forest all of the time. Tumechoka kubadiliza misitu kila wakati. Ideally tunafaa kubadiliza nyani wenye wanaishi kwa hiyo misitu. I think that was my contribution. Kama ni huduma namba jambona to exaggerate sana as if.
Asante sana Charles Nyakundi there calling us from Naivasha, telling Kenyans to take it easy and just go with the flow. Very quickly as we wind up, gentlemen, maybe reactions to what the callers have said and your final remarks on everything. Let me start with you, Kipchumba.
My final remarks will be maybe a caution to the handshake duo that in future they should try to tame some of these characters. Recently, Sifuna came out saying that these are the handshake candidates, the other ones are from where. I think the handshake was about bringing unity. So the communication around there, it should be a communication so that it is not self-defeating of what people have been hyped about. So, and when you tell people that these are these, it means that you are already, the handshake is already a political party or something. So I think going forward, and this is what leaves the president and the former prime minister in an awkward position when we have such a results. The other thing is that Kenyans should know that everywhere people vote for the underdogs.
Thank you. Husband?
Well, I think there's some element of frustration as far as the fight against corruption is concerned. If you listen to what Joshua said from Muranga, that sometimes you know the truth, that this is a thief and you don't need a court of law to prove that, which is a very interesting statement to make. And I think it calls on whatever the president said, that people will only go if they are arraigned in court. So we need to see that process fast-tracked. Another thing that has come out, especially from Onkoba and I think Charles Nyakundi, both from Nakuru County, is the fact that we need a lot of information about the huduma number. I think it's incumbent upon the government to sensitize people on what this number is all about and how it will help Kenyans.
Mark.
I have two things to say. Number one, if indeed we are at a war, at a place of war against corruption, then we must accept that in any war, you must be constantly changing tactics. You must constantly be attacking the enemy from every flank possible. The president's speech made it sound like that the only angle that we are approaching this war is legal. We must understand that there must be a moral fight, there must be a political fight, there must be a PR fight, there must be every form of fight possible against corruption, including naming and shaming people who are implicated in these things. The second thing is we cannot emphasize enough the need to educate the public before you legislate or before you bring up bills. That's true for the milk thing, it's true for huduma, and it's true for the fertilizer thing.
Yes, well, to congratulate the people of Embakasi and Ugenya for voting with their selfish interests in mind. And I think that's how we need to be voting in all elections, so that we say bye-bye to T-Beam and Tialala and Kumira Kumira. You vote with your selfish interest in mind. And right now, the burden of killing corruption in Kenya is no longer in Kenyatta's hands. If the State of the Nation address is anything to go by, it's now gone squarely to the hands of Kinoti and Haji, and they must go the extra mile to clean this thing. If they don't do it in 3 weeks, then we pass a new legislation and declare Kenya corrupt country.
Thank you. Very quickly to some of your views. Nico Kibet says, will we have to hear about IBC registration again with Huduma? If yes, then it's a scam. Duke of Migori says, the government should do more public participation. Kenyans will learn to accept and own the process. Victor Kiprop says, I'm yet to register too for the Huduma number and waiting for a signal from Dr. William Ruto. One here, Sarolling says, keep up guys, your objectivity makes me watch your show Thank you so much, Sarolling. Keringeti says, he's talking about Aisha Juma. Of what use is her to the party? I would rather she is donated to the hustler and ODM not field any candidate in Malindi. But Julius Baswet says a good political student should understand that even if the ODM party loses in Ugenya, it doesn't mean that Raila's opponents are gaining ground, just like when Mpuri Aburi won in Tigania with ODM, but all votes went to Kibaki at the presidential vote. Democracy wins. Jibril